Welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Breaking news out of the NBA. Trade deadline is officially underway. We had the Rui Hachimura deal last week to the LA Lakers. Now we have a real big trade here. KYRIE Irving goes to the Dallas Mavericks along with Markieff Morris in exchange for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, a first-round pick in 2029, and a 2027 second and 2029 second-round pick as well. Great trade for the Brooklyn Nets. They get a really good point guard back who they have history with in Spencer Dinwiddie. He's been a leader on that Dallas Mavericks team. Really strong numbers, three-point shooting, independent of Luka Doncic being on the floor or not. Dorian Finney-Smith on a team-friendly deal gives them the wing that they've been looking for here at the deadline. But for the Dallas Mavericks, they get the better end of this trade as far as the overall player. Of course, the off-the-court concerns are significant. Very curious to see how he meshes in Dallas, both with Luka Doncic and with owner Mark Cuban. If they're able to work out a long-term deal, there is the trade kicker issue for KYRIE Irving to work out in this deal as well. But thank you guys for joining us here at the Upside. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like on this video. Follow us on Twitter, Upside SN, and find our Facebook page, Upside Sports Network. But thank you guys for joining us. The trade itself for the Dallas Mavericks gives them a second star to pair with Luka Doncic. That's exactly what they've been looking for. They tried that with Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, that didn't work out. They thought that by trading away Porzingis to getting a couple of other tradable salaries like Dinwiddie, like Bertans. That would be something that they could turn around and parlay that into another star player. They've done exactly that here with Kyrie Irving, and it only cost them one first-round pick. Now, of course, they still have the 2025 first-round pick and the 2027 first-round pick that they can deal here, probably after the deadline, maybe in the offseason to pedal towards another superstar and give them a real big three. But this is a team that could make other trades here at the deadline to bolster this roster. This is a team that needed a second star, needed a second playmaker next to Luka Doncic. They trade away one of their other playmakers here in the deal, though, with Spencer Dinwiddie, so that does hurt the Mavericks from that perspective. But Kyrie Irving is definitely a better player than Spencer Dinwiddie. Let's not get it confused. He is an absolute playmaker. He is an absolute shot creator, shot maker as well. He is going to be fantastic for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, again, the question is the off-the-field concerns, off-the-court concerns. Those are significant. He was suspended earlier by the Brooklyn Nets for the support for a film that he was supporting anyway on Twitter. He apologized for that somewhat. He's had his off-the-court issues as far as politics and those kinds of things. If he's able to iron out those things and be able to, stick to what he's good at as far as basketball and still be able to handle the off-the-court issues in a better, more professional manner, then the Dallas Mavericks should really have something. But for the Brooklyn Nets to get as much back as they did for a player with only a few months left to control with all the off-the-court concerns that you have, that's quite a boon for them. I was expecting them to get at least one first-round pick. Don't get it confused. I thought they'd probably be able to pry away 2 first-round picks from the LA Lakers. I thought that's ultimately where I thought he was going to end up going. It doesn't happen. And so it looks like the LA Lakers are going to have to go another route to acquire another star to go to LA, see what they can peddle that Russell Westbrook contract into. The Utah Jazz, I thought, would have been a great third team to kind of partner with the Brooklyn Nets and the Lakers to try to get the Brooklyn Nets the pieces they were needing to stay in contention. The Mavericks, though, give them the pieces that they were needing. They get a defense-first forward in Dorian Finney-Smith, who is a good 3-and-D player. He is struggling offensively, however, this year. But they get a good replacement here for Kyrie Irving, who comes with none of the off-the-court baggage that Kyrie Irving has. Plus, he's under contract now for next year as well. Good deal here for the Brooklyn Nets. They get a few picks out of this deal as well. So now that they can continue to add around the core that they have right now, they also continue to churn that roster over a little bit. They now have a little bit more longevity with the team that they have, that they might be able to extend their title window a little bit here. With Kyrie Irving, you never know if he was even going to be back next year. Plus, they got future assets here. A pick, a first-round pick, a couple of seconds, and Dorian Finney-Smith is under contract for 3 years after the current season. So overall, just a great deal. I really like Spencer Dinwiddie as a player. It's going to hurt to see him go as a Dallas Mavericks fan, but I'm really excited about what the future holds now for the Dallas Mavericks. We've seen them in the past, in the Donnie Nelson years before their first title run in 2006, when they went all the way to the NBA Finals and lost to the Miami Heat. That team was built on trades. They continue to churn over that roster to continue to create more talent on that roster via trade. Remember all the trades that they made with Nick Van Exel, Rafe LaFrance, Tim Hardaway, the original Tim Hardaway anyway, the Antoine Jameson deal, the Antoine Walker deal, Eric Dampier. Then you had the trade for the number 5 pick in the draft with Devin Harris, the trade for Jerry Stackhouse. All of these trades were how they got good the first time around, and now maybe with Nico Harrison under control of this roster right now, they may go back to something like that. But for the Brooklyn Nets, this does keep them in contention in the East. They are in the top 4 right now. The Boston Celtics have seemed to be the class of that conference so far this year, but they are still looking for some help as far as a defensive-minded center, somebody who can come in and give some minutes behind Al Horford. Those are that crew there. So maybe they make the trade and go get Podol. We'll see how they decide to distribute their assets here at the deadline. This move, however, does not preclude the Brooklyn Nets from going out and making other moves here at the deadline. They also were looking for backup center help. They're looking for wing help. They get the wing help here with Dorian Finney-Smith. Now they get the point guard back here in Spencer Dinwiddie. I wonder if they're going to add another guard to that rotation and a backup center now that they have additional ammunition to try to win. Kevin Durant is not getting any younger, so they could turn around in this trade market and try to add some other pieces. They've been connected in the past to Naz Reid from the Minnesota Timberwolves, most recently with Jared Vanderbilt from the Utah Jazz. The Philadelphia 76ers are one of the most aggressive teams in his market, along with the Portland Trail Blazers. It is going to be a wild trade deadline season. I told you guys before this trade deadline hits, we're going to see some of the bigger trades happen in the weekend before and a few days before, just so you can get exchange medicals, get some of these bigger deals out of the way, so that you can fine-tune your roster, make those back into the roster changes that you can right at the deadline. We should see a flurry of activity on deadline day, but what a day, or what a trade to kick it off here on deadline week with Kyrie Irving being traded to the Dallas Mavericks. Again, the full trade so far, as announced by Adrian Wojnarowski, is going to be Kyrie Irving and Markieff Morris, not Marcus Morris from the LA Clippers, but Markieff, his brother, go to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, a 2029 first-round pick, a 2027 second-round pick, and a 2029 second-round pick. Overall, just a great haul of assets here for the Brooklyn Nets, a team that needed assets, especially if they were going to try to make further trades to better this team. The Dallas Mavericks still are able to trade the 2027 first-round pick as of right now. They will have to wait until after the season, after the draft anyway, to trade the 2025 first-round pick, unless they're able to work out some type of compensation for the New York Knicks to go ahead and waive that protection that they have on it, or figure out something else with the New York Knicks as well. There has been some talks between the Knicks about a Reggie Bullock trade. Maybe there's something in the works that could work there. Possibly Cam Reddish coming the other way. Maybe a waiving of the protections, if you will, making it a completely unprotected 2023 first. That would free up the Dallas Mavericks to trade that 2025 first-round pick. Then they would have two tradable assets, two first-round picks that they could then go into the market and maybe go out there and try to acquire an OG Anunoby. I don't think they have the assets now to do so, because I thought in order for that to happen, they would have had to have included Dorian Finney-Smith to be able to bring that type of a player back. But Kyrie Irving is definitely a better player at this point as far as an overall talent right now. OG Anunoby might be a better player in a year or two, and they might not be able to get the contract extension done with Kyrie Irving. We'll see if something happens here in the next couple of hours, if some news comes out about a extend and trade, if you will. We talked about that in our video that we made last night, breaking down how that would work for you, but we'll touch on it here in just a moment. But welcome in, Ryan. Welcome in, Warrior. Welcome in, Sarah. Nice to see you again. It's been a minute. But thank you guys for joining us again. Deadline week is here. We'll be live for you guys on the 9th all day long, breaking down every single trade as it happens. But nice big trade here to start things off on deadline week. Kyrie Irving gives the Dallas Mavericks an absolute bona fide star next to Luka Doncic. That's exactly what they were looking for pretty much since they drafted Luka. They tried, as I mentioned, to bring in Kristaps Porzingis. That did not fit. That did not work out. We saw them try to pare down that roster a little bit, as far as pare down that contract, if you will, by splitting up the $30+ million salary of Porzingis into two tradable deals in Davis Bertans and Spencer Dinwiddie. They peddle one of those contracts right now in Dinwiddie to the Brooklyn Nets. It is going to hurt from a Mavericks perspective as far as losing Spencer Dinwiddie. I would have liked to have seen them try to include a Tim Hardaway Jr. I can understand the Nets making sure they got a point guard back to take over the role of Kyrie Irving in that offense. Dinwiddie is a fantastic player. Nets, you shouldn't have lost him the first time around, but now you actually realize the error of your ways and get the player back that you should have kept all along. Dinwiddie's going to be a fantastic player for you guys. Congratulations. Really hope he has a great career in Brooklyn, and hopefully he succeeds there. But the Dallas Mavericks get the better end of this trade, in my opinion, because they get the star. As long as he stays on the court, and as long as they can get that extension done, this trade is a win for Dallas. It's very difficult for Dallas to be able to lure free agents. We've seen them try to do that over the past 10, 15 years at this point, to no avail. They tried to bring in players like Dwight Howard in the past, and players like DeAndre Jordan, who spurned them at the last minute to go back to the Clippers. They tried for CP3. They tried for Kemba Walker. They tried for Kyle Lowry. None of them said yes to Dallas. Therefore, they went out in the trade market, brought in Porzingis. That didn't work out. Now they bring in Kyrie Irving. Great deal. Now, as far as your comment there, Sarah, about KD probably wants out, I understand he's very close friends with Kyrie Irving. I get that's part of the lure that brought him to Brooklyn in the first place, but they weren't necessarily seeing eye to eye. Kevin Durant kind of felt like a man by himself last year, especially in that playoff series when they were swept by the Boston Celtics. There is some rumblings about other teams at least checking in on Kevin Durant's availability. With the haul that they got back in this trade, I would think Kevin Durant would feel very comfortable playing in Brooklyn, at least for the time being, depending on what they decide to do the rest of the way here at the trade deadline, how their playoff series goes this year. If they get swept again in the first round, I would say Kevin Durant probably reiterates that trade request and says, hey, I'm done. I don't want any more to do with Brooklyn, and they figure out a way to get it done. But I think at this point it's too soon to say Kevin Durant will be traded here at the deadline. I just think he's going to take a wait-and-see approach, see if they get some magic going. And now that they have more assets, they can try to make bigger trades here at the deadline as well. But let me just refresh the page just to see if any other details have come in. Your Celtics do look great, I would agree. I still don't see anything about an extension. I'm very curious to see how that happens. So kind of break down the machinations of the trade kicker that the Brooklyn Nets will have to pay a 15% trade kicker immediately once this transaction goes through to Kyrie Irving. That's going to be a hefty sum of money going Kyrie Irving's way. I'm sure Kyrie loves that, but it was the reason why he requested the trade in the first place is because he wasn't being given a max contract with no stipulations. That was the issue he had with Brooklyn. He wanted a full 4-year max. Now that he is going to be traded to Dallas, he is only eligible for a 2-year max extension. That would have to be agreed to as part of this trade. Otherwise, you'd have to wait until after the season to be able to give him the contract that he's looking for. I wonder if Dallas is comfortable without giving him stipulations on that deal. He has missed tons of time due to off-the-court issues, injury issues, those types of things. And we'll see how he meshes at least off the court with owner Mark Cuban, who does differentiate himself very differently than Kyrie Irving as far as on the political spectrum. I'm wondering if they just let bygones be bygones and just let him play. For instance, during the mask mandate, or vaccination mandate around the country, etc., Mark Cuban was very prominent proponent of the vaccination process. He did have one player on his roster that he did not, or that was not vaccinated, etc., and that was Trey Burke. He allowed him to play. There was no issues between the two. It was very amicable between the two. And that's not a star player, in case you guys missed that. So I expect him to get along with Kyrie Irving, especially if there's going to be this level of commitment to him as far as overall players and talent going the other way, in addition to draft picks, future compensation as well. Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, does have a very close relationship with him from his time at Nike. We thought at the time of Nico Harrison's hire that he might be useful as far as bringing in some of the top talent out there via trade or free agency. We thought at the time that Damian Lillard would be the overall target when he was brought in, because the interest in Damian Lillard at the time being on the trade market, etc. Nope, it's Kyrie Irving. He goes to Dallas. He will be the second star anyway to Luka Doncic. Doncic is by far one of the best overall talents in the NBA, one of the best talents the NBA has ever seen. And partnering him with a shot maker like Kyrie Irving, Dallas has not had a player like this pretty much at all, ever in their history. You look at Dirk Nowitzki, just an absolute fantastic overall player, rebounding. You look at his overall game offensively. He was able to play a little bit better defensively as he aged, kept himself more in the paint. He was by no means a stopper, but they've never had a player like Kyrie Irving. The shot-making ability of Kyrie is going to be invaluable in a playoff series for Dallas. But as I mentioned, it'll be curious to see what type of extension they work out. More of this, or as this news continues to unfold, we'll see what actually happens here as far as the contract extension. If they end up waiving the trade kicker as part of this deal, if Kyrie Irving is amenable to a longer-term extension by getting the extension done as part of the trade. We'll see how that all works out, but it does not appear to be final as of yet. Everything has been agreed to. I'm sure they're going to conduct physicals like they always will. But let me pull up the screen here for you guys. All right, so as you can see here at the hoopsrumors.com website can break down, or shows you the full breakdown of the trade. Kyrie Irving goes to Dallas along with Markieff Morris. That coming from Shams. And then Woj, of course, has the full details of the deal. Dinwiddie, Finney-Smith, a first and 2 seconds go to the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for Kyrie Irving. For the Brooklyn Nets, a little bit more on their side of this trade. They get the better end of the package as far as overall, number of pieces, assets that they can move out in the future. Dinwiddie is already going to take the spot of Kyrie Irving in this deal, in their lineup anyway. They had just benched Kyrie Irving. We literally just posted the benching video of Kyrie Irving literally seconds before the news broke that he was going to be traded to Dallas. So if you guys want to check out that video, you can as well. But he immediately steps into the lineup. I'd imagine Dinwiddie's going to be your starting point guard in Brooklyn. Dorian Finney-Smith, I'd imagine, is going to be probably coming off the bench in Brooklyn, if I had to guess. Depends on how they decide to break down their rotation. They do have a few wings now that they can use at that 3-4 spot, including Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, T.J. Warren, and Joe Harris. I wonder if any of those players might ultimately be involved in this deal to kind of give somebody back to Dallas to fill those minutes for Dorian Finney-Smith. Finney-Smith, as I mentioned, team-friendly deal, around $12 million per year. Signed that 4-year, $55 million extension last year to stay with Dallas. Dallas had the option to get the same type of deal done with Jalen Brunson. Imagine what they would have right now if they had kept Jalen Brunson. He could have been the headliner going back in this deal, and they'd still have 3 ball handlers on this roster. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. They did get the extension done with Dorian Finney-Smith, and that's why, being such a great asset, he's a part of this deal and gets them a superstar in Kyrie Irving. But for the Brooklyn Nets, they, of course, still need another wing. I'd imagine they'd like to bring in somebody as far as more shot-making ability, since they lost a little bit here with Kyrie Irving. They get some of that back with Spencer Dinwiddie. I think maybe a guard could come in here at the deadline as well. There's a lot of opportunities here for Brooklyn to now improve their roster with the added assets that they've gained from the Dallas Mavericks. They could package that pick that they just got, the 2029 first from Dallas, in a trade for a backup big man. They could go out there and go for Podol now and steal him away from what seems to be the favorite for him in the Boston Celtics. But it's going to be very curious to see how Brooklyn attacks this deadline now that they've made the move to get rid of Kyrie Irving. Welcome back, Itai. You think the Lakers will trade Russ for Vanderbilt, Conley, and Beasley from the Jazz? Will the Lakers even make a move? And what do you think the trade deadline will look like? I do think the Lakers are going to invest heavily here at the deadline. They are a team that's rejuvenated by the trade for Rui Hachimura. I'm shocked, absolutely shocked the Lakers did not end up with Kyrie Irving. I did not think Dallas was going to be that comfortable with the off-the-field or off-the-court concerns and would not have the ability to extend him or offer this level of asset to bring him in. They do offer it up. They get the star next to Luka. I guess that's the most important thing. That's why they get it done. But for the Lakers, he would have been a perfect fit in that LA Lakers offense. He would have given them a third star. He would have given them some shot-making ability. Takes a lot of the pressure off of LeBron James to literally do everything for that team. Anthony Davis can stay on the mend and stay healthy. They can manage his minutes a little bit better. And just looking at that team, if they had a big 3 of Irving, LeBron, and Anthony Davis, we're talking about a team that probably propels itself out of the play-in tournament and into the top 6 in the Western Conference. Maybe even competes with the likes of the Golden State Warriors. I expect the Warriors to play better, even though Steph Curry is now going to be out for several weeks due to an injury suffered in the game last night with the Dallas Mavericks. But the Nuggets right now seems to be the class of the West, along with the Grizzlies. Grizzlies are going to miss a couple of players anyway for an extended period of time due to injury as well. But the Nuggets finally have all their pieces back and healthy. They are looking for guards here at the deadline. They've made Bones Highland available. But for the Lakers, this was an opportunity missed. I think he would have been the best option here at the deadline to improve their roster. But to answer your question, do I think they could get Vanderbilt, Conley, Beasley from the Jazz? No, you might get 1 or 2 of those pieces for the assets that you currently have. You are not getting all 3. With the interest in Vanderbilt alone, the interest there is going to be equal to a first-round pick plus additional assets, especially when you look at the Portland Trailblazers and the Philadelphia 76ers looking to bring him in. The Jazz could do very well by making trades with either of those 2 clubs. I'm sure other teams are looking at Jared Vanderbilt as well. As far as Mike Conley, he could also command a first-round pick. Mike Conley as well could command another first-round pick, and the Lakers certainly do not have 3 first-round picks plus other talent to trade back to the Jazz to get it done. Can you see another star being moved? If so, who would it be? I do think we could see some loosening around the league as far as trades now. The Dallas Mavericks have pushed their chips a little bit to the center here, shuffling their roster a little bit, dealing another first-round pick to bring in a star. I think Brooklyn now has the ammunition to go out there and make another bid on a big contract out there to solve the issues that they have on their roster, maybe make a big addition to this roster. However, the other teams that have assets to trade, say, look at the Chicago Bulls. They've played well over the past couple of months, played a little bit better anyway, I should say. They aren't fighting as much between themselves, between Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. That level of player could be the next star that's moved as far as a star. But do I expect it to happen here at the deadline? Perhaps not. It seems like Chicago wants to hold pat. The one team I would hold out for as far as trading stars is going to be the Toronto Raptors. It seems like they're going to wait all the way up until the deadline. Put a video about that yesterday out. If you guys want to check that out, you can. But basically, they want to wait until the deadline to decide whether or not they want to buy or sell. Do I think the Raptors have a chance to compete in the East for a title? Absolutely not. I think they should sell, but we've seen this before from Masai Ujiri from the Toronto Raptors. They like to hold on to their assets. They have Fred VanVleet, who turned down a 4-year max offer with them. I think it was 4-year, $114 million contract that he turned down. He wants to get that 5-year max, I believe, after the season. He should be able to command it very easily this offseason. There's not a whole lot of great free agents available. D'Angelo Russell's probably the top of the heap as far as free agents after this season. But overall, it's going to be a very interesting deadline for kind of that mid-tier star. We're not talking about top-end star players like, a few years ago when we had, the big three in Miami with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, that level of player. We're not going to see Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, those level of players traded here at the deadline. But we could see that next tier down. The D'Angelo Russells, the Fred VanVleets, the maybe on an outside looking in, a Zach LaVine type trade, maybe a Jeremy Grant if they can't work out the long-term extension there in Portland. Those level of players could be the type of player we see here dealt at the deadline. I am fascinated about the ability for the Phoenix Suns to improve here at the deadline. They are not working well with their center DeAndre Ayton. It seems like a sign and trade was discussed this offseason between the Suns and the Raptors that would have sent Anunoby and other assets to Phoenix in exchange for DeAndre Ayton. I'm sure that now has reversed itself with Ayton now probably having to be paired with other assets. Toronto has been looking for a center for the better part of the last 3 years, and that would give them exactly what they need as far as their future goes. And then as far as the Phoenix Suns, they've been looking to shake things up ever since their team was just sold. There was discussions about CP3 possibly being traded to the LA Lakers for Russell Westbrook. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but the Banana Boat crew could get together at some point there in LA. You could see LaVine, Derrick Jones Jr. to the Lakers for 2 firsts, Russ, Lonnie Walker, and Pat Bev. 2 firsts is basically the incentive there for the Chicago Bulls, and I'm not sure they would do that. I think they could have gotten 2 firsts last year for Zach LaVine. Now he's on a bigger contract. I think they would like to hold on to him at least through the rest of the season just to see if they can get anything further out of it. I told you guys at the time when he signed that max contract, I think the Bulls had reached their ceiling, and I just don't think they're going to be able to get out of the first round no matter who they end up facing in that first round series. I think they've reached the max of what that team's potential could be. Now this offseason, maybe if you offer something like that, if you're the Lakers, that might get it done, but it's at least here at the deadline, I just don't see it happening. The other most interesting team here at the deadline is going to be the Utah Jazz. They have tons of players that they could deal here at the deadline. The only 2 players on their roster they will not deal. That is Lauri Markkanen and Kessler, who they just acquired from the Minnesota Timberwolves in the trade for Rudy Gobert. They're looking to improve their roster however they can possibly do so. They're looking to acquire future assets. They've got tons of draft picks available now. They were looking to buy here at the deadline, possibly bringing in Dorian Finney-Smith. They had significant interest in him. A little bit surprised that Dallas didn't try to work out a 3-team deal to try to save themselves maybe Spencer Dinwiddie by having Mike Conley being shipped to the Brooklyn Nets and maybe Tim Hardaway going there and saving Spencer Dinwiddie and sending Dorian Finney-Smith to the Utah Jazz and getting picks and all that kind of thing done. But that seems the way the Lakers offer as far as how they were trying to attack it as well, and that wasn't enough for them to get it done. So Dallas had to step it up and go ahead and include Spencer Dinwiddie. I'm sure that was probably the sticking point here for Brooklyn, as they wanted a point guard to come back and take over the role of Kyrie Irving. Why do you think Kyrie wasn't traded to the Lakers? Pelinka's fault or what? I think the Mavericks just offered a better trade. I mean, just looking at the assets Dallas gave up in this trade, Dorian Finney-Smith worth a first-round pick plus. Spencer Dinwiddie had certainly rebuilt his trade value ever since last year, where he certainly had negative trade value at the time. Now he's a 40+% three-point shooter, good shot creator, leader on the Dallas Mavericks roster. Actually one of the few players that helps communicate on the defensive side of the ball for Dallas, and that's going to be missed for Dallas. Now, Dallas has been terrible on defense all year long. They're expected to get a couple players back from injury here in the next couple of weeks. Luka Doncic should be only missing a game or 2 here with that heel injury that he just suffered in the game on Thursday. But for Dallas, they get some shot-making ability that they have never had. But to answer your question about Kyrie Irving, why wasn't he traded to the Lakers? Was it Pelinka's fault? I don't think it's Pelinka's fault. I just think they don't have the assets that could have competed with that Mavericks offer. I mean, just looking at the deal, what would the Lakers have offered? 2 first-round picks? Those are your, limelights that you want to shine on. Well, Dallas has essentially given them the first-round pick completely unprotected in 2029, which the Lakers, by the way, were wanting to keep protected. Dorian Finney-Smith, which by himself is worth the first-round pick. I think the Utah Jazz would have been more than willing to part with first-round pick to bring him in. Spencer Dinwiddie, I think, had rebuilt his value significantly higher than Mike Conley's right now, and so that's why the Mavericks ultimately get a deal done. The Mavericks or the LA Lakers would have had to include Mike Conley as far as a 3-team deal to be able to get this deal done with the Brooklyn Nets, and you can see how that deal doesn't necessarily compare to the one that they got from the Dallas Mavericks. And this still gives them ammunition to trade here at the deadline for other pieces that they need here at the deadline. Could the Nets go out there and get them Jakob Poeltl from the Spurs? Could they go out there and get Naz Reid from the Minnesota Timberwolves? Could they go out there and add an OG Anunoby now that they've got additional first-round picks to deal here at the deadline? I think they are probably going to go the guard route, try to bring in somebody off the bench that can come in, play defense, that kind of a thing. There was some rumors about Josh Hart being available from the Portland Trailblazers. Have a video out about that one. A little bit on the sneaky side, though, is Alex Caruso of the Chicago Bulls. Lonzo Ball, of course, is still working his way back to health, etc. He might be back just in time for the playoffs. But Alex Caruso, the asking price for him was 2 first-round picks. That's exceedingly high for a player of his talent, and he is great, don't get me wrong, as far as ability to play both ends of the floor, assist guy, defense-first player, not going to require the ball in his hands the majority of the time to get his shot. But he is also kind of a playmaker on the roster. He would be a nice addition to that Brooklyn Nets team. If they want to go that route and improve their guard rotation, they could go for a guy like Alex Caruso. There's also the opportunity of bringing back another former Brooklyn Net in D'Angelo Russell. Now, D'Angelo Russell is in the final year of his deal with the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's looking for a max contract as well. There has been some hesitation by the Minnesota Timberwolves to give him that deal because of the inconsistent play to begin the year. He has been much more consistent over the past month or two as well, and so he could be available at the trade deadline for the right price. Now, the price for the Timberwolves has been at least a first-round pick and somebody who can come in and take over that point guard role if they traded D'Angelo Russell, or, and this is their preferred option, to get somebody of comparable play on a long-term contract for him in return. So, for instance, I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan, so just putting it in their terms, say they include Tim Hardaway Jr., that gives them a comparable scorer, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's equal trade value. So they have to include either a pick and maybe a point guard going back the other way. But now that Dallas has Kyrie Irving, I don't think there's any reason for them to go out there and bring in D'Angelo Russell. Just kind of give you an idea of what the Timberwolves could be asking for here at the deadline for a player like that. And for Brooklyn, now that you've traded Kyrie Irving, you could bring him in and give you another big three there in Brooklyn. Big three with quotation marks around it anyway, with Kevin Durant, D'Angelo Russell, and Spencer Dinwiddie. But to answer your question, is KD gone? I don't think so. I think he's going to wait until after the season to at least make his decision as to whether or not that's the right move for him. If these moves work for the Brooklyn Nets, he may end up staying there and not request a trade. If things don't work out, this Kyrie Irving trade ends up working great for Dallas, and the pieces coming back don't exactly pan out. Dorian Finney-Smith never finds his offensive game, sits on the bench because he doesn't have an offensive game, sits behind Ben Simmons because they already have a defense-first forward right now on their roster. Their offensive forward guy is going to be the T.J. Warren and Joe Harris. So Dorian Finney-Smith might actually be shuffled down on that bench if things break the wrong way for them. On the guard rotation, if Spencer Dinwiddie goes back to jacking up shots, lower shooting percentages like he had with the Washington Wizards, this trade could start to look very bad very quickly for Brooklyn. Then you could see an opportunity for KD once they're swept in the first round of the playoffs, if those things happen, that he could request a trade once again after the season. But I think this trade overall will work very well for both sides. Dallas gets the star that they've been looking for the better part of, 3 years now, ever since Luka was drafted. They tried Kristaps Porzingis, didn't work out. We'll see how things end up working out. Honestly, I see the Lakers getting Gary Trent Jr. He is very gettable. Gary Trent Jr., the asking price for him is a protected first-round pick and a matching salary, or 2 good second-round picks, not back of the first or back of the second round, 50-plus picks anyway. We're talking in the 30s, maybe high 40s second-round picks that could go the other way, and they're looking for at least 2. So kind of keep in mind that when you're talking about the trade deadline here, as far as Gary Trent Jr., 24-year-old, has another year left after this year. kind of a scoring type player for the LA Lakers. Maybe a trade of Patrick Beverley, maybe a few second-round picks, maybe a protected 2027 first. However they decide to get it done would be a nice deal for them. Might be an easy trade for them to make as far as cleanest trade. Don't have to include a third team to be able to get the deal done. That could be a nice deal for them. The Raptors, as I mentioned, though, are going to wait until the deadline, a few hours before the deadline, to make their decision whether to buy or sell. That news coming out yesterday from Woj. You can check out that video here on our YouTube page. You can check out our Twitter at UpsideSN and our Facebook Upside Sports Network. Also have a TikTok as well, Upside Sports Network. You guys can check out that one. But make sure you hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. It really does help us out. Again, we will be live for you guys all day long on trade deadline day, February 9th. We will begin 8 a.m. in the morning, take you through the deadline, a few hours past, break down every single trade as it happens, who wins the trade, what does this look like for the future, what does this do for their future of both rosters, does this mean that they're going to push for the postseason, does this mean they're going to be a first or get one of the top picks in the draft, what does this mean for their long-term future as far as do they stay contenders for the foreseeable future, or are they going to be rebuilding after a year because the player leaves in free agency. Dallas takes a little bit of a risk here. Who did the Clippers trade last year for Rocco and Powell? That was the steal of the century last year for the Clippers. In case you guys missed those videos I made back in February of last year, they're still up on our YouTube page as well. But the Clippers absolutely fleeced the Portland Trailblazers in that deal. Norman Powell is a two-way player, good player on both ends of the floor, giving them, 17 points a game so far this year. Robert Covington was the Rocco that he's referring to here. He's a good two-way player as well. Defense first player, 3-and-D guy. He's kind of what Dorian Finney-Smith is kind of resembling, just a little bit younger version of him, if you will. But at the time, that trade was Eric Bledsoe, which had a non-guaranteed contract for this season. That's what made the deal very appealing for the Portland Trailblazers, as they were trying to shave as much salary as they could to try to compete in free agency. Obviously, it didn't work great. They did make some nice moves, keeping Anthony Simons, bringing in Gary Payton from the Golden State Warriors, making the trade with the Detroit Pistons to bring in Jeremy Grant. But they overall didn't exactly get the pieces they were hoping for after that deal. The trade, I think, only included a couple of second-round picks, and the Clippers absolutely bolstered their rotation with both of those players. Maybe the Lakers could do something similar this year as far as a team that's looking to trim salary in the future for future years. Before this trade, the Dallas Mavericks were thought to be that team where they were willing to trade, number of assets that had long-term money on them to try to shift and pivot towards a free agency approach this offseason. Now that they have Kyrie Irving in-house, now they can look to acquire a third star via trade here at the deadline or after the season. I think as currently constructed, Dallas will be assured a top 6 place in the playoffs. I think there's every reason to believe that they could finish in the top 4 and host a playoff series in the first round. I think they'll probably get into the second round, and then after that they might run out of steam unless they make some other additions here at the deadline. They need to get Christian Wood back healthy. They need to get Maxi Kleber back healthy, both of which were in practice the other day. Maxi Kleber practiced for the first time in almost 2 months after having surgery to repair his hamstring. He did participate in one-on-one drills. Christian Wood, he fractured his thumb. He's been out for about a week now. He could be close to returning as well here in the next game or two. Luka Doncic has missed some time with a rolled ankle. Now he's an issue with the heel, but he's only expected to miss about a game or two as well. He could be back by the end of the week. So the Dallas Mavericks, they could have things starting to roll their way defensively. Now they have a shot maker in Kyrie Irving, so that takes some of the pressure off of Luka Doncic in late game situations. Dallas had so much pressure on Luka coming into this year. Now they have somebody to at least alleviate some of that. Maybe they can distribute the ball a little bit better. Their offense might function a little bit better as well. They need to get better production out of guys like Reggie Bullock, though, guys who are depended on to be 3-and-D type players to improve that defense, to be the open three-point shooter in the corner. They trade one of their best three-point shooters in this deal in Spencer Dinwiddie. They get a really great shooter back in return, though, in Kyrie Irving, a better overall player. I just wonder about their shot making outside of Doncic and Kyrie Irving right now. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. has the ability to be a shot maker, but he does run hot and cold. He is a streaky shooter. He always has been. He always will be. He has the ability to give you 30 one night and then the next game go 1 for 15 and give you 5 points. That's how hot and cold he is. He just needs to be more consistent. And so I wonder if Dallas looks for greater consistency. There was rumored to be a deal involving the Cleveland Cavaliers that would send Karis LeVert to Dallas in exchange for Tim Hardaway Jr. I wonder if those talks might be revisited now. Somebody who's who's a more consistent performer. Cleveland is looking for somebody to fill their 3 spot in their lineup. They're looking at either Tim Hardaway Jr. or Bojan Bogdanovic from the Detroit Pistons. Pistons seem to be looking to hold on to Bogdanovic, so maybe that will ramp up interest in Tim Hardaway Jr. on behalf of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavaliers have tons of interest in a lot of guys out there for that 3 spot, though. So Dallas isn't going to get any sweetheart deal for Tim Hardaway Jr. just because the Cavs prefer him. There's lots of options that they can go with at the wing. Jay Crowder here at the deadline is going to command a decent price here, probably at least 2 second-round picks. There was talks between the Milwaukee Bucks acquiring Jay Crowder in exchange for Grayson Allen. However, the Phoenix Suns said, no, we don't want any part of Grayson Allen. You can understand why. There is a history between CP3 and Grayson Allen, the tripping and all that kind of a thing. So I don't think there's going to be any reason for them to make that type of a deal. But if they can orchestrate a deal that gets them Jay Crowder without Grayson Allen, I think the Bucks would basically be happy with that here at the deadline. They do have Serge Ibaka to deal here at the deadline, and the Brooklyn Nets have been rumored to be interested in him as well. So now you can see the trade deadline starting to heat up here now that they have one of the biggest dominoes falling here with Kyrie Irving going to Dallas. Just checking in to see if they've announced an extension at all. Irving and Finney-Smith had trade bonuses in their contracts, it looks like. I could have sworn Dorian Finney-Smith had one, but I think because his contract vested a couple of weeks ago for next year, that trade kicker turned into that vesting option. Here's the reason why the Lakers didn't get him, or the Clippers or the Suns. It said that they were very happy with the useful present and future pieces. That's why the talks really accelerated today. If I had to guess, the inclusion of Spencer Dinwiddie instead of Tim Hardaway Jr. is probably the reason why. Dallas has had Tim Hardaway Jr. available for the better part of about 2 months now, and you can kind of understand why. Hot and cold shooter, lengthy contract. It doesn't look nearly as bad as it did to begin the season because he was injured at the beginning of the season. His shot numbers last year were terrible. I'll put it this way. They could do better than Tim Hardaway right now on their roster. He's still a good player, don't get me wrong, but they want greater consistency, and streaky shooters are great sixth man. You don't want to necessarily count on them to be your third leading scorer in your lineup, and so I think Dallas is looking for something to give them more consistency in their lineup right now. The trade here, the reason that they had to include Spencer Dinwiddie is because they're looking for an asset to kind of take over that point guard spot for Kyrie Irving, and Spencer Dinwiddie takes over. They have familiarity with him. They get the wing that they needed here at the deadline as well, and they now have assets to trade here and into the future if they decide to. But thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate all the comments we've gained here today. And remember, hit that subscribe button. We'll be live for you guys February 9th, breaking down every single trade. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed all the trade deadline talk. We will keep going. Tonight we will have our live at 9 o'clock breaking down this trade, all the further details of this deal as well. So make sure you join us tonight at 9 o'clock for further breakdown of the NBA trade deadline. And every night until we hit the NBA trade deadline on February 9th, we will be live on the 9th. Starting first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. Central Time, we'll be live for you guys breaking down every deal as it happens. Winners, losers, breakdowns of the trade for both sides. What this roster looks like going forward. Draft picks going the other way. Does this mean they're going to be contention for a first round or for the first overall pick? Does the other team end up in contention for the title? Remains to be seen how the deadline will ultimately shake out. But a nice start here with a big trade. Kyrie Irving going to the Dallas Mavericks. In case you guys are just joining us, Kyrie Irving and Markieff Morris are traded to the Dallas Mavericks. Still details are coming in, but he did have a trade kicker. There's still discussion about whether or not the trade kicker issue was resolved, or if Brooklyn's going to go ahead and pay that 15% trade kicker to the Brooklyn Nets, or to Kyrie Irving anyway. On the Dallas Mavericks side, they are sending Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, first-round pick in 2029, completely unprotected, and 2 second-round picks in 27 and 29. Overall, just a great trade for both sides. Brooklyn gets a ton of future and present assets. That's why they were able to get the deal done with Dallas. And as far as the Mavericks, they get a second star that they absolutely had to have next to Luka Doncic. Thank you guys for joining us here at The Upside. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like this video. It really does help us out. And follow us on Twitter at UpsideSN. We'll be live for you guys again, 9 o'clock this evening. We'll see you then.